Hello, and welcome back to the Stupid Stuff Podcast. I'm TanTan the Tan Man, and I'm joined today with Ira, aka Fun Gun IV. This is episode 26 of the podcast, and if you were a little confused by episode 25 and all the shenanigans and tomfoolery that happened in the previous episode, here is a brief lore recap. So, the lore episodes as of now are 6, 7, 24, and 25. In episode 24, at the very end, Tantan the Tan Man decided to blow up the universe, seeing as it was too annoying and he wanted to be off the podcast. Between episodes 24 and 25, he recreated the universe in his own image, with some slight glitches here and there due to it being very amateurish. Buddy somehow was not affected by any of this and retained all memory. So we can assume he is also as, or even if more, powerful than Tan the Tan Man. Tan the Tan Man and Buddy try to explain recent events to this new universe's version of Ira and Hayden, which go by different names and different profile pictures. As the episode continues, we learn of the Frog, which seems to be a supreme being that Tantan the Tan Man and Buddy call the Frog, and seem to refer to it as almost a parental figure, or at least a figure of authority. As the episode continues, we find out more and more glitches, and slowly but surely, Hayden and Ira come back to the original state they once were in. Tantan the Tan Man has a breakdown, sings a few songs, and Buddy just kind of makes fun of him the entire time. Now we are in episode 26, uh, and I think today is just going to be a regular episode. Is that right, Ira?
Yeah, honestly, I have no fucking clue what we're gonna talk about. I've been I've been
We'll
trying to
talk about
think
anything.
been trying to think about like while you were talking, I was trying to think of a topic. So we kind of know from the last couple of lore episodes, like we know a decent bit about Buddy's history, like his past and his powers, the atrocities that he has committed. Um, but we don't really know very much about TanTan. And I was wondering if we could maybe get a little bit of information on who this TanTan figure is.
Ah, so you want to hear a story, eh? Um, so Tantan the Tan Man, what are his powers? Basically, he is. I would say he's probably on the same level as an elder god
I was about
from
to say,
H.P. Lovecraft's
yeah,
lore.
he seems pretty godly, and I
Like
mean, he reset the fucking universe, so you know.
he can reset the universe, but he takes time to like do it right. So basically, he
Well,
it takes unlike for most deities, it takes time and effort for Tantan to do some big stuff. Small stuff he could probably do just fine without even blinking an eye. But the bigger it gets and the more diverse the situation is, the less likely he is to pull it off without a hitch.
mm,
Now, that isn't to say that Tantan isn't strong. He could probably take on most adversaries in any sort of physical or mental fight. Because fuck you, that's why.
mm. Good old Alucard explanation.
Yes. Tantan is a very stubborn being, I would say. Very spiteful. You tell him
Mm.
not to do something, and he'll most definitely turn around and go do it just to prove that he can. So the best way to get under his skin, I would say, is to tell him, "Hey, you can't do this." Not that he is unable to do it or that he shouldn't, but rather, um, you're poking at his ego, if you will.
Ah. Mm.
Now, Tantan usually is a very understanding and open person. But if you gaslight him enough, he will shut himself off and shut himself close. He becomes very opinionated and hyperbolic, I would say.
Mm.
This is more like a personality thing, I guess.
Yeah.
What do his powers entail, really? I guess anything and everything you can imagine. Just it's not always perfect, 100%. Don't tell him that.
Yeah.
'Cause that
Yeah,
irks
no,
him.
he'll flip his shit. But
Yeah,
yeah.
Buddy did that in episode 24, in
TanTan
25.
started singing fucking
Episode
Sweet
20.
Caroline. That was
Yeah.
some shit. It's actually one of my favorite clips to edit because it's just all this other shit happening, and then you just hear in the background,
Yeah.
"Sweet Caroline, ba ba ba." It's like so completely done with everything.
But yeah, Tantan lives vicariously through the Tantan Pog. That is his symbol, if you will.
Mm.
His sigil, his emblem. The Tantan Pog is a beacon of power, and through it, one, if they have the right ritual, can summon Tantan and force him to do a podcast.
as as a couple of chuckle fucks that you may know have done quite a few times now.
Yeah.
First time, he actually just showed up. Second time, and all the other times, we summoned his ass.
Yeah, Tantan really is really uh he's like a cosmic event almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like every every time the planets align just right, he appears. And then once that's done, he's gone forever until it happens again. But if you get the right ritual and you uh acquire the power of the Tantan Pog, you could practically summon him for about anything. In reality, though, Tantan appears to be just some regular dude in his 19/20s. Uh, plays video games a lot and kind of just treats everyone else like they're an idiot.
Mm. Um, yeah. So, there's the Tantan Pog, but a thing that we became aware of last episode is the Nat Nat Pog,
The
which
Nat Nat
which you
Pog.
claimed that you are also Nat Nat, but in in some events that have transpired, it almost seems that Nat Nat is the like Nat Nat Pog is the opposite of Tantan Pog. It like rejects,
Yes,
or
it's
it's
like
like
matter
two
and
two
antimatter
magnets of the same uh polarity. That's the
polarity.
word.
Yes,
So I was
yes. The
wondering if
only
we
reason
could
I know that word is because that was freaking Pyrrha's semblance, and I
the
miss
big
Pyrrha.
Sag Pyrrha.
And then after
Ah.
Pyrrha's death, they decide to make the Pyrrha doll, and it was so fucking cursed. It was just the dumbest fucking thing, and nobody would stop. Everyone kept memeing about it. It's like the fucking Pyrrha
Even
doll.
Rooster Teeth memed about it. In Ruby Chibi,
Because every
they went into the real world and found Cheer and found the fucking Pyrrha thing.
and they were like, "What the fuck,
Like, what the
dude? Ruby
fuck? People
Chibi
were
is
like worshipping it and shit. They were like, what the hell is going on
that's
here?
right. You hold no power here,
You
Jean."
hold no power here, Jean. Oh god. But yeah. Forgot what we were saying. Right. So like
Nat
what
Nat
is the
Pog.
Nat Nat Pog?
It is if Tantan Pog were positive energy, Nat Nat Pog is negative energy.
Ah.
So Tantan Pog is like awesome, yeah. Nat Nat Pog, or alternatively the Dark Tantan Pog,
Mm-hmm.
is boo bad, Or, yeah, but it's for something a little more, something that has a little bit of a more acquired taste,
More nefarious purpose, even if we're going to use big boy
nefarious
words.
purpose, big boy,
Big boy
nefarious.
words. So, so you
Yeah.
said there is this, like there's this ritual that we do, and and we use it to summon you, and
Hmm.
of course, there's the pickle jar, the Tantan Pogs, the orphans, and all that good stuff, and so we bring that together. So we get all the stuff together, and but what if we were to, rather than use the Tantan Pog, use Nat Nat Pog? Would that
If Tan, well, what would happen? I'm sorry. What was the question?
so if rather than using the Tantan Pog, like Tantan Pog, Pickle Jar, Orphans, we get Nat Nat Pog, Pickle Jar, Orphans, what would happen? Would it summon Nat Nat, or would it summon you but Angie?
I would say Nat Nat, probably.
Hmm. So it's like two sides of
I
the
would
same
say,
coin kind of thing.
basically, it's like it's like say there's like it's like that quantum immortality thing I mentioned in episode 19. Like
Uh,
basically
right,
there's a
right,
bunch of collective physical yous, but there's only one conscious and consciousness. There's only one conscience.
right.
So it kind of like travels in between. So
Doesn't that theory
like
stem
when I
off
say
of
that I
quantum
am also
entanglement? Right. I'm trying to think.
and it's off of it's more based off of the multiverse theory and
Ah,
they put quantum in there because it sounds cool.
yeah,
It's like it's like the most basic of theories. Like it's on the most basic level of theory. Like there's
yeah.
barely any science behind it.
It's more of just, hey, that would kind of make sense, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that would kind of make sense.
yeah. Um, let's see. So, what do you know about the frog?
The frog,
Yeah,
the get nay frog.
yeah,
So the
yes.
frog is basically like the frog is basically like the living tribunal. It's basically like the one above all.
Ah, I see.
Basically kind of like the big man, if you will.
Ah, okay.
Everyone answers to the frog eventually. Just like
Hmm.
different hierarchies and shit. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme, but not quite.
The universal pyramid scheme.
A universal pyramid scheme, yeah.
Oh wow.
And the frog is at the top.
Hmm.
I don't know where I rank specifically. I'm pretty sure Buddy is probably somewhere a little underneath the frog,
I mean, yeah, I would
maybe just a
assume.
tier or two.
I mean, and you said that,
I'm kind of new. I'm kind of new.
yeah,
Nobody knows what I'm capable of yet.
yet. Um, yeah. So I mean, because you mentioned that when you reset the universe, it was kind of amateurish. So
Yes, because it
has
was done very rash. It was a very rash thing.
yeah. So has that happened before then? Because it's like you were comparing it to
I'm assuming
others.
so.
Yeah. Huh.
Comparing it to what?
Like comparing it to other like times the universe was reset.
Yes.
So also, did he just skip forward to the period where Luke Goblin and Yeast Boy were, or did he like start at the beginning and then just wait? Like he waited,
Tantan or Buddy?
uh, Tantan.
Tantan, I would assume that Tantan. I'm speaking about myself in the third person. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tantan essentially. lore TanTan. There's a
Lore
difference
TanTan.
between podcast
Yeah.
TanTan and lore
Because
TanTan.
there's
We're gonna
person
have to,
TanTan, then there's character TanTan. It's like there's person Ira,
yeah,
character Ira.
yeah. Okay, so character TanTan, um, made remade it, and I mean he could have probably just waited, but I would assume he just kind of skipped forward.
Yeah. It. I
Truth be
gotta
told, he
say,
probably missed the chuckle fucks, and that's why they were there.
I gotta say, it would have
But
been really funny if he waited 13.5 billion years. He got in the call, and it was the same two idiots that he just left.
yeah, it would be funny.
But I don't know.
Whichever's funnier, whichever is funnier is the canon one.
Do you want to talk about JRPGs, bro?
I haven't played any. I mean, I've played Undertale. That's not a JRPG
That's
though.
that's.
Uh,
I was gonna say that's not a
I was
JRPG,
thinking,
Ira.
no, that's just a RPG.
If you want to play a good JRPG, I would say Final Fantasy 15 is a good
I
modern
I
JRPG.
played
Definitely,
like
that's definitely a
an
good one.
hour of Final Fantasy
Um,
15.
Final Fantasy 15. Have you not played Final Fantasy 15?
I played an hour of it. I don't know.
It's good.
I just wasn't able to get into
Yeah,
it.
maybe, yeah, it's probably just that JRPGs aren't your style, man, which is fine.
Yeah,
Not
like
everything is everyone's style, but like it
yeah,
made me cry at the end. I got to the end of the game and I cried because it was
little
so
bitch boy, little
sad.
bitch boy, little bitch baby, little bitch boy. No.
The only movies that have ever made me cry are the ending of Forrest Gump when he's talking to Jenny's grave and talking about how smart Forrest Jr. is. He's like, he's so smart, Jenny. I try to read to him every night before we go to bed. And it broke my heart. And then
Dude, I
the ending
fucking
of Saving
love
Private
Forrest
Ryan.
Gump. I've been meaning to
Dude,
watch Saving Private Ryan.
you
I
have not seen. Oh
I
my,
haven't
you have
I
to.
haven't seen Private Ryan yet. No.
I think I think it's still on Netflix.
It is. It's been
So the
on
next
my
chance you
watch
get,
later list for a few months.
after we're done recording, just watch it. Okay? Just watch
I
it.
will do that.
Cause the ending made me cry.
The end of
And
Endgame
then,
made me cry.
bruh, what you calling me a bitch boy, a little bitch baby?
Dude, I
Oh no, Iron Man dead.
dude,
Wah!
Iron Man has
More
been my
characters
favorite.
in the franchise. Wah!
Dude, I've been watching Iron Man since I was 2. Like Iron Man 1 came out when I was 2 years old. I watched Iron Man
What?
2 I watched Iron Man 2 every day for like a year when it came out on DVD.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But
Even
yeah,
though
no.
Iron Man 2
Iron Man
is
2 is
Iron
a.
Man 2 better than Iron Man 3?
I
Which one
think
was the bad one?
none of the. Dude, all of
I
the
think
Iron Man movies went hard.
no. There was one Iron Man
Iron
movie I
Man
remember
3.
that people
Iron
didn't
Man
like.
3. Iron Man 3 gets shit on a lot. That's the one where he has PTSD and he's in Tennessee.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the one then. Yeah.
People shit on that one a
I
lot.
haven't
I thought
seen
it was
all of
really good. I fucking loved the soundtrack.
I haven't seen any of the Iron Man movies all the way through.
Oh
I've
my
seen
god.
most of Iron Man 1, some of Iron Man
You deserve
2,
the death
and
penalty.
barely of
Jesus
Iron Man 3.
Christ.
Have you seen the Raimi trilogy? Have you seen the Holy Trilogy?
I have.
Okay, good. Because I've seen the Holy Trilogy several times through.
You know what I haven't watched?
What have you not watched?
Lord of the Rings.
Like, none of them?
None of them. I read The Hobbit.
Well,
for
that
I,
no,
I
that
I
counts.
I read The
That
Hobbit
counts.
for
I think that
school in
counts.
like 5th grade. I don't remember anything from it. I remember there being lots of detail.
Yeah, no, like Tolkien made up a language,
Jolkin Rolkin
then
Rolkin
made
Tolkien.
okay, no, J.R.R. Tolkien fucking wrote, he made up a fake language, right? He made up a fake language, right? A fantasy language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then made a translation, like a translation thing for that fake language,
Mm-hmm.
and then translated it into English. So like some of the stuff written in The Hobbit is like it's supposed to be like you know how like localization in anime, like English dubs often like change words so that it makes more sense to
Uh,
like English viewers and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Did he write it in
He
Elvish?
wrote it like that.
Or isn't the thing
No, no.
he
What
made
he did,
Elvish, or what was the?
he made Elvish, and so I think either The Hobbit was written in the Hobbit's language or it was written in Elvish. Like he made it so that it was like it was originally written in Elvish, and what we are reading is somebody's translation of those accounts into English, compiled into a single book called The Hobbit. Like literally,
Hmm.
the dude localized his own book.
That's fucking
Like
dedication.
the
Are there
way
any copies that are in Elvish?
no, I've some probably fan made ones, but like the way he wrote it's not like he wrote the entire thing in Elvish then translated it. He wrote it in his like the way he formatted it, the way he wrote it all in English, but he
Mm-hmm.
wrote it under the context that somebody else was translating it into English.
Hmm.
So like there's like there that's why like weird discrepancies appear in the book because it's like localization. It's like I don't know how to explain it. I
Yeah,
remember
no,
seeing it
I get what you're
like in a
saying.
video. Do you watch overly sarcastic productions?
I think I've seen a couple. Bleh, I think I've seen a couple of videos.
Dude, if you ever want to get into writing, watch Trope Talk. Their series Trope Talk is the most useful thing for making original writing content. Like,
I should do
holy
that
crap.
then, because I still need to write the stupid stuff Bible. That's a thing that needs to happen.
Exactly. So if you really want to learn how to write some good stuff, um, definitely watch Trope Talk because like Red, she is amazing at just making things nice and simple for you to understand while also making it entertaining and informative. I love overly sarcastic productions. I need to
Hmm.
watch more of Blue's stuff because Blue does all the history stuff and I love fun history stuff. But like I'm like I've been more of a writing phase lately, so like I always watch Red's
Ooh.
trope talks so that I can learn like, oh, if I want to use this trope, I gotta know that there's this and this that you need to watch out for, and like how to like avoid that or like how to use that effectively. Or like even if
Hmm.
there is that weakness, you can work around it this way. Like there's a story I need to get back on writing it, but I told you about it. It was
Yeah.
the where it was that like post-poke apocalypse dark ages fantasy type stuff, but it was um like everyone was divided into three factions of blue eyes, brown
Right,
eyes, and
right,
green
right.
eyes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. Dude, I had forgotten
So
about
like
that, actually.
what I wanted to do was make the five-man band trope,
Yeah.
but
Well,
like
well, I don't think
everything is like switched around.
I don't think we've actually talked about the Eyes story on the podcast before, actually. If you want to let the
Oh,
listeners know
okay.
about that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So here, I'll pull up the Google Doc
Mm.
that I have. I need to get my laptop back into my room and work on that stuff. but I'm calling it the Betrayer's Testament right now. That's like its working title,
That sounds badass.
and it's about this guy called the Betrayer. Like he's technically the main character, but he's not like the hero of the story. He's
Hmm.
not the leader. Um, so like it's like post apocalypse, like nuclear and like assured like mutually assured destruction happens. Like kind of the world gets nuked, kinda like basically something happens that causes the world to like human society to be reset, and it causes a post apocalypse setting where like the world isn't a barren wasteland mostly like you can still live off of the land and all that, but it's all changed and different, and information is not as readily available as it is for us right now. So like it's basically a second dark age, and there are different like labs scattered. There are labs and data centers scattered throughout the world of the story, but whatever data people can gather from it or whatever information or research papers people can gather from it is very scarce and it's very hard to come by. So the one main thing that really um puts it all together is the fact that it's just a weird little fun fact that you'd find on the bottom of a Snapple cap is that the blue eyes recessive gene was an was actually it started out as a mutation, and the first person to do that, person to have that mutation was born in the Mediterranean, like thousands of years, or like a thousand, and like at least in the BC area, like probably like 300s BC, something like that. And that fact, like that little tidbit of information, sticks in sticks in post apocalypse's people's head, like that really drives all the conflict because of all the misinformation and stuff. But it's also kind of a little bit like fantasy. It's not entirely meant to be grounded in science and fact. So it's kind of like a little bit of science fiction. It's hard to describe, but basically everyone is convinced that blue-eyed people are mutants and that they're not on the same level as other people, which are the brown eyes and the green eyes. Everyone divides themselves up by their eye color. Like nobody gives a shit about race or class. Well, technically wealth class still exists because there's kingdoms and stuff, but like nobody gives a shit about race or gender or even sexuality. Like what really sets you apart is what eye color you have, believe it or not. Um and the blue-eyed people are kind of discriminated against as mutants, like in the X-Men. And there are actual blue-eyed people who have actual legitimate mutations that do sometimes grant them superpowers. Like people with the blue-eyed gene are more likely to have mutations than any other eye color, is how it works in the setting of the story that I'm writing. And the betrayer is, of course, a blue-eyed person. I just call him Blue Eyes. I call him. He's a blue-eyed person. He's a Blue Eyes. So, but the reason why he's called the betrayer is because like during this great conflict between the brown-eyed kingdom and the blue-eyed kingdom, the betrayer, of course, betrays the blue-eyed people and causes them to lose the war against the brown-eyed people, causing all of the blue-eyed people to either seek refuge within the green-eyed kingdom or to become prisoners within the brown-eyed kingdom. And yeah, he like works in a prison. He's treated like crap by both the blue-eyed people and the brown-eyed people. Um, but he's supposed to be like incredibly strong. The his whole shit. It's hard to think right now. Trying to gather my thoughts here. Basically, blue-eyed and there are blue-eyed people who have mutations and blue-eyed people who don't. And the and both groups of blue-eyed people are treated like they have mutations, even if they don't have mutations. And the blue-eyed people who do have mutations are often considered very dangerous and like high threat levels because they have like powers like the X-Men do. Like the Betrayer's mutation is that he can control every cell in his body to a very precise extent. Like, he can control his blood flow, he can control his airflow, he can control like how his body moves essentially. He can cut off blood flow to a poisoned limb. Like say he gets bit by a venomous snake in his hand. He can cut off blood flow to the hand so that it doesn't uh the poison doesn't spread anywhere else, and then he can quickly push the poison out by controlling the difference in like muscle cells around the wound to push all that poison out and then return blood flow. Like that's just like one example. He usually uses it in combat to bypass like a lot. So like here's a little fun fact. Natural human strength isn't the same as the human strength we have. So the average the average 20 to 30-year-old human male, the average healthy human male can lift a car without hindrance. Like that is our natural strength. Like with ease, if we didn't have this like limit that our brain puts on ourselves, if we didn't have the limit, um we could like I could easily lift a car. Like no problem. But the reason why we can't is because our brains put a subconscious limit on ourselves, or not even like subconscious, but like within our what is it? Parasympathetic, I want to say. No. It was like instinctively we put a limit on ourselves because our muscles are stronger than our bones. So sometimes if we try to lift something, our muscles could contract so hard they break our bones. And that's not a good thing. Or they can lead to other injuries, which
Ouchie.
is yeah, which is why we have a limit on ourselves. And working out helps like push back the limit. But basically like a bodybuilder could probably like like if we didn't have that limit, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime could probably be the next Captain America, essentially. Like that's how strong we could be. Like I'm pretty sure if we didn't have that limit on our brains, if we weren't at risk of injury by using the full extent of our strength, Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime would literally be the T-800. Like no joke.
Actual
Like that's how
Terminator.
strong we could be. Like he would be an actual Terminator. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
If only, dude.
so
Imagine if we evolved so our bones were made of like fucking steel or something rather than like calcium. That would
actually
that would probably be
actually
pretty
the
badass.
calcium, the reason why our bones are made of calcium is because um it's more flexible. See, here's the
Mm.
thing. Stronger bones, it depends on what you want your bones to be. If you want your bones to be more flexible, they'd technically be a little bit weaker. They wouldn't be able to take as much pressure, but they'd be able to move more freely. If you want more sturdy bones, they are less flexible. So you wouldn't be able to bend them as much, but they'd be able to take a lot more pressure. So like if our bones were to be made of like steel, or if our skeleton was to be sturdy or thick enough that it acts the same as steel, we would not be able to our bodies too much, or else they would just snap.
It's
So it's
like,
kind of like a
yeah,
balance.
because you would need to
But
find
yes,
something that would have the like middle ground between not being too hard so that it's brittle and not being too soft so that it's just like goo, you know?
so the betrayer, he can use his mutation to bypass that limit and use his muscles to their fullest extent at risk, at the cost of potentially breaking his bones. Of course, he also kind of micromanages that. He still sustains a lot of injuries, but it's nothing he can't handle, right? But yeah, no, so the story takes place after the betrayer betrays the blue-eyed people. He's working in a prison meant to house like blue-eyed prisoners. He's blind. After the battle, during the battle, he was blinded, so he can't use his eyes anymore. And it's supposed to be like if you can't use your eyes, you can't use your mutation, which is not really how that works, but it's like kind of like a mind over matter thing. If you can't, if your eyes are damaged and your mutation is damaged, is what people are convinced. So the betrayer assumes he's basically out of commission. So he lets people walk all over him. He lets the brown-eyed guards beat the crap out of him whenever they want, and he doesn't really care because he's the betrayer. Like he knows people hate him. It's nothing new. And then a
He's just
shipment
like
of prisoners come in.
understandable.
Yeah, he's like understandable. Like he's like I'm not gonna do anything. Like it's whatever. He doesn't care because he did what he did, and like he doesn't care if he gets killed by by one of the guards either. He doesn't care. But it's not like a meh whatever. It's like yeah, I probably deserve to die. It's whatever. Yeah, and so then a shipment of new prisoners come in, and one of the prisoners and there's rumor going around that one of the prisoners in the new shipment is supposedly the princess of the Blue-Eyed Kingdom, and she's a real important person because the king is dead, so she would be next in line for the throne. So they need her for like politics. So her name is Io, as in I-O, but it's pronounced Io. And she's joined by three other people. She's joined by Trace, um, a yeah, he's very brash. He's very how do you say? He he's arrogant. He's a bit of a prick, but like he's good where it counts. He's like Kevin Levin from Ben 10 Alien Force. Like he can come off as standoffish, but really he's just very protective of the people he cares about. And he was the son of the royal blacksmith. And then there's Ocean, and she's Eo's bodyguard. And Ocean is really cool. She's kind of like an assassin almost. Very smart. She's practically the voice of reason of the group. And then there's little Benjamin, and he's just a random kid that got caught uh uh taken away from his parents. And so it's the five-man band is the betrayer, Eo, Trace, Ocean, and Benjamin. And what I wanted to do with the five-man band trope is that EO is the leader, the betrayer is the lancer, uh, Trace is the big guy, or he's the big guy, the big strong guy, but he's also the lancer's lancer, which is a thing that can happen. Um, Ocean is the smart guy, and then Benjamin is the heart of the group. And
The group mascot.
yeah, basically, Benjamin is like the moral compass. He's like the moral center. Everyone like kind of tries to do the right thing because of Benjamin because they want to set a good example for him. I mean, Benjamin also helps Betrayer. They just call him Betrayer after a while because the Betrayer is just a bit of a mouthful. So Betrayer, like, he learns to soften up around people because of Benjamin. But yeah, and then there's the antagonists who are the Brown Eyes and the Brown Eyed Kingdom itself and the two Brown Eyed Princes, which are Varn, the oldest, and Varric, the youngest. Varn uh has an he has an eye patch over his left eye, and it's assumed that he's blind in that eye, but he isn't. Um, and Varn and the Betrayer have a weird thing between them that's not spoken about. m- But it's very clear that Varn is he's not like antagonistic towards the Betrayer. He doesn't bear any ill will towards him, and even at times it seems like he's almost sad for the Betrayer. Like he pities him for some reason, but it's never explained until later on. Once I By later on I mean once I write it down. But for some reason the betrayer just really doesn't like Varn, but Varn just almost feels pity for the betrayer. Varric, however, absolutely hates the betrayer, and in fact he hates all blue-eyed people in general, but the betrayer he hates the most. Like you know how like how Megatron has like the kill boner for Optimus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically Varric with the betrayer.
Oh Lord.
He wants to kill the betrayer so bad, and he won't let anyone else try and kill him. He's like, no, the betrayer is my kill. And the betrayer just thinks Varric is annoying. Betrayer's
I
like,
mean,
oh yeah, it's fine.
understandable. You basically have a murder
Betrayer's
simp.
Yeah, a murder simp. Murder besties.
Murder
And
besties. Yeah,
then
I'm getting big tsundere vibes.
and the green-eyed kingdom is of course neutral. There are green-eyed people who help our adventurers along the way, and green-eyed people who hinder our adventurers. And then there comes the hazels, and the hazels are bioengineered mutants. They are a mixture of green-eyed and brown-eyed DNA, which has the same chance of causing mutations as the blue-eyed DNA. So essentially, they're all made in a lab, and they're made specifically as a hit squad to hunt down the Betrayer and EO and others, and they all have mutations too. So like Betrayer is not the only one with a mutation. In fact, everyone except Benjamin has a mutation. Io has a mutation, Trace has a mutation, and Ocean has a mutation. No, I take that back. Ocean. Does Ocean have a? I forget. Did I plan for her to have a mutation? No, I don't think she does. No, she doesn't. So it's Io, Trace, and the Betrayer have mutations.
Eo's mutation is very specific. She it only works on the betrayer for some reason, but it's basically she commands him to do something and he is willed into doing it. Like he cannot say no. Even if he wants to, he cannot say no. Like it activates a part of his brain that's like must follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. It's like a would you kindly. And then Trace has a mutation, but we never get to see it. It's assumed it's super strength, but actually it's not. It's something else completely entirely, but that is until, certain things happen. So basically, there's a point where Benjamin, Ocean, and Trace die. Benjamin is the first to die, and that causes the group to slowly drift apart. Ocean joins the Hazels, or yeah, she joins the Hazels not to hunt down the betrayer, but she joins like a group that does something else. Like they do something else. Like they look for like other labs. Like she just kind of ditches the group, but it's supposed to like give them a cover so that they can like adventure in privacy. Like they aren't being hunted down every minute. Of course, she never says that, but like it's said within like the story like she's doing it for this reason, but the others don't know. And that really hurts Trace because Trace and Ocean are like best friends. Like they are like childhood friends. They're not in a relationship because Trace and Ocean are actually based off of two friends from in real life that I have. So like their personalities and their chemistry are based off of how they are in real life, and we're all just good friends. So I'm not trying to ship them or anything, but like it really hurts Trace because he's lost both Benjamin and Ocean, who were his best friends. And when Ocean dies, when she's found out to be a double agent, she's killed. And Trace goes ballistic and uses his mutation, which is inspired by Red Like Roses Part 2. Basically, he has super speed, but it costs him his life because the longer he uses it, the more of his skin falls off because his body cannot withstand the wind, the air pressure, and the wind speed caused by his own super speed. So literally bits of his skin are falling off and blood trails behind them, but it's in such a way that it looks like rose petals, and it's super neat. It's a super cool thing, but like it costs him his life. Like he's surrounded by a group of hazels and brown-eyed soldiers. He goes ballistic, and they're like, "Wait, are those rose petals?" And they touch one, and it like drops down to the ground, and it's just a splash of blood. And they're like, "What the?" They're dead. But for the entire time before then, it's assumed that his mutation is super strength because he's super strong. Like he lifts stuff up. He wields a big axe he wields a heavy battle axe as his main weapon. But no, it's super speed. He doesn't like using it. He's just really strong. His mutation is super speed, and he doesn't like using it, one, because it hurts, and two, he thinks it looks girly. But yeah, it is heavily inspired. It is heavily inspired by the lyrics of Red Like Roses Part 2 because it's all about how like how Ruby's mom is dead, like she made a sacrifice and it left Ruby all alone. So like Ocean makes the sacrifice and it leaves Trace all alone. But yeah, and Varn and Varric also have mutations. Varn's mutation, but he has heterochromia. He has one blue eye and one brown eye, which allows him, which granted him a mutation, which is hypnotism. He can put a suggestion into a person's head, and he can make it powerful enough that it becomes reality. So what he did was that after the blue eye brown eye war, he used his hypnotism on the betrayer to convince him that he was permanently blind. And then Io, of course, at the very beginning of the story, breaks the hypnotism with her mutation, and when Betrayer finds out that he was lied to, he kind of loses it for a little bit. He gets a little bit angry. A little bit a little bit the only thing they fear is you is now playing. The just a little bit why do I hear boss music?
Yeah.
But yeah, and so yeah, so Varn's mutation is a natural one that he got from his heterochromia because his mom had blue eyes. Um uh and Varric he has brown eyes. Varric is a natural brown eye. But thanks to experiments and DNA experimentation, the same type of experiments used to make the hazels, Varric has his own mutation, which is telekinesis. How does he
Mm.
use his telekinesis? He throws knives with his mind.
Hmm.
That's it. He doesn't use his telekinesis for anything else. He only uses his telekinesis to throw knives with his mind.
That's pretty badass.
It is pretty badass. And there's like a whole thing, like I haven't written it yet, but it's like at the beginning of the story. So when Io breaks the hypnotism, Berserker is like in the Betrayer, sorry, Betrayer is in the middle of a fight. Like he's getting beaten and about to get killed when Io uses her mutation, commands him to fight, which breaks the hypnotism. And when he realizes that he can see, he realizes that he can fight. He throws a single punch at the guard that's about to kill him. And it hits him. It hits the guy so hard, it launches him into the wall behind him. And then the next wall behind him, and then the next wall behind him, and the next, until he fucking makes a massive hole in the outer perimeter of the prison,
He
which
fucking
causes
he
a prison
reverse
break.
juggernauted that bitch.
He did. He literally reversed Juggernauts the whole thing. Fucking the sirens go off and the blue-eyed prisoners are starting a prison break. And the betrayer looks up at Varn and he goes, Varn! And Varn's like, Varn turns to Io because they were talking, and then Io like reveals herself to be the princess, and Varn's like, you just ruined everything. I had the most dangerous human being on this planet in this prison on the tightest of leashes, and what did you do? You cut off the fucking leash. And so Betrayer goes to Warren, and Varric shows up, and Varric's like, you may be fast, but there is still a delay between your brain and your nervous system and your muscles. It may be a fast delay, it may be the tiniest of delays, but it is still a delay. My knives have no delay. It is straight from my brain to the knives. And then he proceeds to fucking slice up the betrayer, and of course, the betrayer doesn't give a shit because he can move so fast, time is slow. Like he's like the Flash levels fast.
I'm just picturing
And
Doom guy fucking tap dancing while dodging knives. I don't know why. That's the visual I have.
it's a pretty good depiction.
But
It's a pretty good depiction. It's a pretty good visualization. But yeah, so Varric's throwing knives, and Varn's like, Varric, stop. We gotta go. We gotta get out of here. And also, the longer Varric uses his mutation, the more damage he takes. Like,
Mm,
it causes nosebleeds and it causes like hemorrhage around his brain. It
right.
doesn't cause actual brain damage, but it puts him at risk, basically,
Yeah.
the longer he uses it.
It's like the rose petals,
And
but
yeah, yeah,
inside of
yeah.
his brain.
Like the most powerful mutations most often come at a huge price, right?
Hmm.
Like there's somebody else with super speed. Like there's a Hazel that has super speed, but he doesn't really have a cost. But it turns out it's not fast enough to fight the betrayer. Like the guy the guy can move his legs as fast as a hummingbird can flap his wings, but the betrayer can easily see he can count how many times a hummingbird flaps its wings.
Mm.
Like that's the difference between the betrayer's mutation and the Hazel's mutation. Like the Hazel still has super speed. Like he's really fast. Like it's hard to get a hit on him. But the betrayer is like on a whole nother tier. And so it comes at a greater cost. And Trace is at a whole nother tier as well. But it comes at a great cost.
His fucking skin sheds like rose petals.
Exactly. And and yeah. So how do we avoid these costs? Is there a way to avoid these costs? Is there ever a moment where the betrayer just gets to go all out? Yes. Do you want to know how?
How?
The father, the first ever mutant, the first human being born with blue eyes. He has any and every mutation you can imagine at once.
Hmm.
Not physical, not like bad mutations, but like he has any and every power you can imagine. It's
Yeah.
like it's one for all and all for
I
one
was about to
mixed
say it
together.
kind of sounds like all for one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's basically like all for one, but he can give instead of take. He can give and take. But
Oh. Yeah.
he seldom does anything. He
Yeah.
seldom does anything. He's immortal too, is the thing. So like he kind of just goes with the flow and
Mm.
tends to stay in the back reaches. But once he hears about the betrayer and everything he's been up to, he's like, that's something I should probably help out with. And so uh he gives the betrayer a temporary mutation. So for a whole 30 seconds, when betrayer activates the mutation, for 30 seconds he will be wholly immortal. His cells will regenerate faster than they are damaged. So he can technically, within those 30 seconds, use the full extent of his power.
We're talking some fucking One Punch Man level shit.
Yes. And what happens?
Some One Punch Man level shit.
No.
No.
He instead wastes it on Varn, and Varn traps him inside his own head, and he has to deal with his past self trying to commit suicide on him. Basically, the betrayer isn't the betrayer initially. He wasn't the betrayer. He was
And then
somebody
until he
else called
betrayed.
Achilles until he betrayed. He was a soldier. He was Eo's bodyguard. Achilles was his name.
Mm.
And him and Varn were lovers.
Hmm.
and it was like a whole conspiracy thing. The Blue-Eyed King knew he was gonna lose, and he knew he was leading his people to doom, but he didn't want the blame to fall on him, and if he died, he didn't want the blame to fall on Io. And so Achilles made the sacrifice to become the betrayer. But in order to do so, he would have to literally betray everyone he cared about because everyone loved Achilles. Achilles was the coolest guy around. He was a great soldier, a great friend, a great leader.
Hmm.
So he had to kill his own men. He had to kill his own soldiers. He had to kill his own troops. And he had
Yeah.
to do it in the most brutal way possible too, and to have it set in stone that all blame goes to him. And Varn didn't want him to do that. Varn said, "No, I'll try my best to stop the war. I'll convince my father, I'll convince the Brown-Eyed King to stop this. You don't have to do this." And Achilles said, "No, I have to. It is my job as the princess's bodyguard to do this." And so
Link
Achilles
is
makes the
Doom
sacrifice.
Guy. No, this is giving me very, very like very very Zelda vibes now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the whole game theory that Link is Doom Guy
Yeah.
from another timeline, or Doom Guy is Link from
Yeah,
another
yeah. Doom,
timeline.
Doom Guy is Link. It's just a really late iteration.
Right.
Yeah.
And so fucking yeah. So so what Achilles does is he basically commits mental suicide. He has Varn use the hypnotism mutation to hypnotize Achilles into thinking that he is the betrayer and that Achilles does not exist and that
Hmm.
Achilles never existed. Of course, Varn knows. Varn remembers, but nobody else does.
Like,
Varn remembers who the betrayer used to be,
how
and
does no one
that's why he
else
always looks sad.
like how does no
What?
one else remember who he is?
Because Achilles asks Varn in secret. Nobody knows what happened to Achilles.
Oh, everyone thinks he died. Wait, but doesn't he look the same though?
No, Achilles had longer hair. The betrayer always keeps his hair cut short.
Huh.
Also, the
That's the
betrayer
thing.
kind of looks.
His hair is
No,
different.
no,
This
he
couldn't
also
possibly
looks.
be the same guy as the fucking Clark Kent. This guy doesn't wear
He no,
glasses.
no. It's more like just the way he holds himself too.
Hmm.
Like side by side, the betrayer and Achilles kind of look similar. Like it's the same body, it's the same shape, but when you look at them, they are clearly two different people.
Hmm. But so you said
So
he
like
basically like remembers Achilles, like he remembers
Varn is the
himself.
only one who remembers Achilles.
No, but like you
Varn
said
is the
that,
only. Yeah,
like
yeah. So
after
Varn
the 30 seconds
unlocks.
thing.
Yeah, Varn unlocks the hypnotism because Achilles' whole thing was he was willing to make himself a monster. He was willing to make himself a scapegoat, but he didn't want to cause any harm after that.
Mm,
He didn't want to cause his people. He didn't want to cause the blue-eyed people any more trouble after that. So he had Varn put on a second layer of hypnotism that breaks both and it breaks both layers. Basically, if Varn says the key word, basically the hypnotism reverts itself and Achilles comes back and the betrayer is gone and then Achilles can make everything right. Is essentially how it's supposed to go.
mm. But
But
that's
at
not
this
how it
point in
went.
time, yeah, at this point in time, the betrayer has gone through so much and he's learned and he's developed as a not only as a character but as a human being, and there's a bit of romance between him and Io,
Mm,
and he doesn't want to give that up. And it's actually inspired. This part is inspired by the song Achilles Come Down, which is a really good song.
Mm,
But it's like in in the betrayer's head, betrayer slash Achilles mindscape, Achilles is about to jump off a high roof and basically essentially commit suicide because he essentially killed himself to create the betrayer. But Varn's mutation forms as like his hypnotism forms as Varn in the mindscape and he convinces Achilles to not jump.
mm,
He convinces Achilles that he's not the one who needs to die. And the betrayer starts to fade away. But the betrayer, not wanting to die and not willing to give up everything he's worked so hard for, everything, he's not willing to give up everything. After all he's lost, after all he's achieved, he's not willing to give up his own life. So he tries to convince Achilles to jump off. And it's like a whole debate. And then Achilles decides that he's not jumping off. So the betrayer jumps off. The betrayer grabs Achilles and forces both of them to jump off, which would
and
essentially leave the betrayer brain dead. It would leave the body dead, right? Like mentally speaking, he wouldn't function.
so is that when he uses the 30 seconds?
Yes, that is when he uses the 30 seconds of immortality to keep the betrayer alive.
Mm,
So basically, he kills Achilles.
mm.
He kills Achilles once and for all. And Achilles isn't mad about it. He's like, I didn't expect it to go this way.
It's like,
And the
well,
betrayer's like, I'm sorry.
fucking fair enough.
Achilles is like, you really love her, don't you? And the betrayer's like, yep, you can't stop me. And Achilles is like, I guess I can't. And then there's the impact. Achilles dies, but the betrayer lives thanks to his 30 seconds of immortality. He heals. He heals from the wounds, and Varn's mutation is undone. His hypnotism is undone, and so the betrayer regains control of his body, and Varn is powerless against him because
Mm,
now there's nothing. Like the betrayer knows how to avoid the hypnotism, so there's nothing stopping the betrayer now. Nothing holding the betrayer back. There's no trick up anyone's sleeve anymore. And so betrayer kills Varn.
nice.
Yeah. But it's sad.
I mean,
Like
yeah.
Varn and Achilles loved each other a lot. And technically Betrayer and Achilles were the same person. So the only reason Varn didn't like activate the kill switch was because he didn't want to risk losing Achilles. And every single time he saw Betrayer, the reason he looked sad was because he missed Achilles. But the Betrayer, being who he is, kills Achilles because, you
One
know,
last betrayal.
he's the betrayer. The final betrayal. No, actually, that's not the final betrayal because then Varric is left. And the reason why Varric hates the betrayer so much is because Varn, because like Varric was friends with Achilles, and Varric looked up to Varn a lot, and he cared about his older brother a lot. And when he found out that Achilles was no more and the betrayer was all that remained, it broke Varn's heart, and so it made Varric upset because he cared about his brother, and he doesn't want his brother to be sad. So he hates the betrayer because of the loss of Achilles. So when he finds out that now Achilles is gone for good, and also the betrayer killed Varn, he loses it. He goes absolutely batshit crazy and
Mm.
like does everything in his power to try and kill the betrayer and Io. Like he even goes as far as to try and kill Io at this point. And the reason why the betrayer has survived so long is because Io can command the betrayer to live, and he can live through almost about anything. Like he receives a fatal blow, she commands him to live, he gets the power to live, basically. Like the power of friendship, but on steroids,
Yeah.
right? And so, in the final battle, where the blue-eyed people and the brown-eyed people are at war again, this time the green-eyed people are on the blue-eyed people's side, and the Hazels are pretty much also on the blue-eyed people's side. It's basically everyone versus the brown-eyed kingdom. In the final battle, Varric, um, Varric tries to kill Io, but he misses her throat just a little bit, but it cuts her throat enough that she doesn't bleed out, but her vocal cords are damaged, so she
Mm.
can no longer speak. And then he cuts he cuts the betrayer's eyes, so he's permanently blind now.
Mm.
So you'd think that the betrayer can't use his mutation anymore, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. That was all part of Varn's hypnotism. Varn was the one that put it in people's head that once you lose your eyes, once the blue-eyed people lose their eyes, you can't use your mutation anymore. Because that's how he convinced the betrayer that he couldn't fight back anymore in the very beginning.
Right.
But now that Varn is gone and betrayer has broken all of the hypnotisms Varn used on him, he can still use his mutation without his eyes, without his sight. And before Varn died, Varn said, "Promise me." This is like a direct quote that I'm gonna write down. Varn says, "At least promise me that if Varric becomes a monster, you kill him as soon as you can. The moment Varric loses himself, kill him, because I don't want him to end up like you." And Betrayer says, "I promise." But he only says it so that Varn can die peacefully. Because he kind of feels bad that he killed Varn's boyfriend and then proceeded to kill Varn. So instead of killing Varric, what he does is that he seriously injures Varric and removes Varric's ability. He removes Varric's mutation so that Varric is basically powerless. And he seriously injures Varric, and he leaves him there to heal and leave, basically exiling him. And he says, "You're going to either live a monster, or you're gonna live." He said, "I promised I was going to kill you, but I decided I won't, because you need to realize that being a monster isn't the worst thing in the world," or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But basically, he decides to not kill Varric and instead take away his mutation and leave him crippled in some way and then exile him. That
Mm.
way, Varric is still alive, and Varric's hatred for the betrayer is still there, but Varric no longer is a threat. So essentially, Varric ends up becoming just like the betrayer was at the beginning of the book, or at the beginning of the story.
Mm.
Betrayer and Io get married, they rule the new unified kingdom together, and basically it ends um, with the betrayer finishing his testament, aka the betrayer's testament. He goes by a
Yo.
different, and he still goes by the name of Betrayer, which is really funny. But yeah, they have kids and everything and all that. They named their kids after Trace, Ocean, and Benjamin because they miss them that much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you how Benjamin dies.
Yeah. You
So,
just kind of said that he died, and then.
yeah, no, Benjamin's a little kid and he dies first. He dies first. They're traveling. It's like after they've had a few adventures and after they've had a few close calls with the Brown Eyes and the Hazels that they end up in this town and there's some weird problem. Like they're next to some caves and there's some giant mutant scorpions that have been terrorizing the town. So the betrayer decides to go and fix the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Benjamin at this point is gotten really jealous of everyone else being able to do something, but Benjamin is always stuck on the sidelines because he's a little kid. He doesn't have any mutations, nothing. He's just a kid. And they're trying to keep him safe and keep him protected because they care about him. And also, he's a kid. So what does Benjamin do? He does what every other little kid does to bring upon their own demise.
Runs
He does the
headfirst
one
into
thing he's
danger.
told not to do. Exactly. He follows the betrayer into the cave system, and the Brown Eyes actually they run into the Brown Eyes in there because the Brown Eyes were scouting out the place and were attacked. Their camp was attacked by the scorpions, so they were there clearing out the scorpions too. And so, um, Varric is there, and he causes like a rock fall to happen, so that basically the way out is blocked off by a bunch of rocks. Betrayer and Benjamin get surrounded by a bunch of scorpions. Betrayer is fighting them off, and he's using his super speed to do it. So like he's able to see more, like he's able to react better.
Mm.
But uh, a scorpion manages to sneak up behind him. Like there's a scorpion that manages to get the sneak up on him. Sneak 100, right?
Yeah, it's fucking insane. That's like a nat 20.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's Benjamin jumps in to push the betrayer out the way, and Benjamin gets stung. He's not like impaled or anything, but he gets
Mm.
stung. And the venom is lethal. Like, the town tells them, like, there's no cure, there's no antidote. They've tried to make one. There seems to be no way to make an anti-venom. If there is, they need some high level tech from a laboratory, which they have none, and there is no laboratory near them for a long distance. And the betrayer is caught off guard, and Benjamin's whole deal is that he thinks the betrayer is a superhero.
Mm.
He's convinced that the betrayer is actually just a superhero from one of his comic books, or that he's just like one of them. And so he tries to treat uh so Benjamin tries to treat the betrayer like a hero, but at the same time he wants to be a hero like the betrayer. And so Benjamin's dying. Betrayer of course kills the rest of the scorpions and clears out the rock wall. And Benjamin's dying in his arms, and he's like, "I'm a hero, right? I'm a hero just like you, right?" And Betrayer's like, "Yeah, yeah, you are. Of course you are. Don't say these things though. Just wait till we get back to town. We're gonna get you fixed up." And Benjamin dies in his arms, just like that. Like he doesn't even make it into town.
Mm.
Like the poor kid closes his eyes and just dies. No, there's no like blood, there's no guts, there's no gore, there's no explosions, nothing, not no bullet wounds, nothing, just a single sting mark and death.
Mm.
And Betrayer makes it back into town, and everyone thinks Betrayer killed Benjamin. But of course, at this point, Trace, Ocean, and Io all know that the Betrayer would never do something like this. He wouldn't kill a kid, especially not Benjamin. He saved Benjamin's life multiple times. He wouldn't dare. And they ask him, and he's like, "Hey, is Benjamin okay?" And Cherry's like, "He's just sleeping. He'll wake up. He's just sleeping." And they're like, "Are you sure? Because he seems. I don't think he's gonna wake up, Cherry. He's sleeping. He'll be okay. He's just sleeping. Cherry, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm just he's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Benjamin's fine. He's just sleeping. He'll wake up. He's okay. Benjamin's fine. He is asleep. He'll wake up. It's okay. And he keeps on repeating that. Like he's not trying to convince the others, he's trying to convince himself. He can't come to grips with the
Mm.
fact that Benjamin died on his watch. And then they set Benjamin down and they bury him in the town and they build a little monument and like they call him a hero. They treat him like a hero because he helped clear out the scorpions and all that. And from Benjamin's body, they actually do get a sort of anti-venom because venom was still in his blood and like in his blood system. So they managed to get like the venom from that and managed to actually find a strain that could be turned into the anti-venom and turned into an antidote or a cure for the venom. So they call him a hero and everything. And the betrayer just breaks down crying. He like gets on his knees and he slams the ground so hard it makes two craters right where his fists were, and he screams and you can hear it across the desert, and like the brown-eyed soldiers kind of like look up and they're like, "What the fuck was that?" And Varric's like, "I think the kid just died." And they're like, "Oh shit." 'Cause they knew after that they're next. Like after now that Benjamin is dead, they're next.
I like how they just knew from the sound. They were like, ah, fuck.
Yeah. They're like, oh fuck. And Varric's like, well shit. What do you know? The kid's dead. Because he knows the sound of pain. He knows the sound of remorse. He like Varric's like, I know that sound. I know that scream. That's the scream you make when you lose someone valuable. When you lose someone close to you. The kid is dead. And the other soldiers kind of look at each other and they're like, "Oh shit, we're next." Yeah, I got like this story all planned out in my head. I just need to
Yeah,
write it down, like
dude,
get it into writing.
I that is like one of the best stories I've heard in a while. I gotta say.
Yeah. Oh, I actually do have some of it written down if you want to hear it.
I mean, sure, but if we do that, it's definitely gonna have to be next episode. Because yeah, going into
Yeah.
this, we were originally planning on only recording for like 40 minutes, like 40, 50 minutes. We've been recording for like an
Yeah.
hour and 17.
Oh wow, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'll just read it to you. We can end this
yeah,
episode and then I'll just read it to you. It could
yeah,
be
for
like a
sure.
mini episode. The reading could be a mini episode.
Yeah. But here. But hope you guys enjoyed. There was lore at the beginning and then a TanTan tale. And yeah.